If it is, good. So very, very warm welcome. Now, this is the first of, I think, 8 teachings on a huge topic that's presented under different names. And because we did an introduction course in the last 2 teaching sessions on the elements, then here we're talking about the elements and the transformation of everything that's associated with the elements on our relative level into the Buddha wisdoms and into the Buddha families and what that means. It's more often a topic that's presented under the title of transforming consciousness, which is vijnana in Sanskrit, into primordial wisdom, which is jnana. So they're very close, vijnana, jnana, and various other titles. So a very warm welcome. And today is basically an overview, a contextual introduction, so you can see where the details that we'll explore in the coming weeks fit. What's very important in these teachings is to come into them with a right motivation, but let's not just say a right motivation, because right means not wrong. Let's say an excellent motivation, because now, today, and in the coming sessions, we are creating karma. And creating karma is a funny thing. Karma itself is weird. It's very weird. We've all got our karma. We carry an enormous amount of karma. Can you see it? Is there some cosmic cupboard you can go inside and say, that's my karma. This is the karma that's happening right now. Okay, this is this life's karma. And that's next life and the life after and the life after. No. Even if you sit in deep meditation, can you then, because of the power of your meditation, go and have a trek around your karmic store? Not unless you are very, 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 very evolved. Very evolved. Yet nevertheless, it's shaping every day we experience. So some of the karma is very powerful, and some of it's trivial, but nevertheless, it's there. So what makes karma powerful? This invisible karma that is what? It's mind, it's consciousness stream. What makes this invisible but powerful entity in our stream of consciousness, what makes it a little karma or a very powerful marking karma? It's the motivation with which, the intention, the motivation, the mind behind the action that we did. So just now we're going to do something wonderful together. We're going to be living, practicing the Buddha Dharma. And so we can do it with a little motivation and a little bit of prayer and a little bit of kindness for all our fellow beings. Or we can do it trying our very, very best to wake ourselves up, realize why we're alive here, to cultivate love in our hearts, service to other beings, to overcome this monster which is ego, attraction, and addiction. And if we have that as our heartfelt motivation for studying this topic, then the karma we'll make as individuals here, each one of us so different attending this session, and as a group, one day in the future, when Maitreya is the next Buddha, And there are tens of thousands of people gathered round. We might just be one little cluster. You say, I know you. Yes. And because we'll have been much evolved by that time, you say, planet Earth, in those difficult days, write teachings on transforming the element in Buddha nature. Yeah, and you were there too. And I know you. I hope. And why not? But we need, if we're going to do that, to make a lovely motivation. A big, as big as you can make, loving heart for as many sentient beings as you can cram into your mind. And in particular, those with whom you have connections in this life, because they are your karma just now, and also they're part of your mind. So thank you. Let's do a few prayers with excellent motivation.
Sonje chodon soje chonamla, jancho badu dane chapsanje. Dagi jinso jipe sonamje, rola penchira sonje druparashu. Semchen tamche dewa dang dewe judang demparajuche. Dongal dang dukmal je judang kralwarajuche. Dongal mepe dewa tampadang men tralwarajuche. Nyeren chadang netang tralwe tanyo chempola ne parajureche. Deyata shame shamavati shameta shatrom kurimare jite karota keorita jovati olo yane bishudan male malapanaye kukure kaka grasa no muke paramuke amuke Sham dawane sawagraha bandhanane nigrita Sava bara pravadina vimukta mara pasha savita buddha mudra Anugatita sava mare butsarita parishuddhi Begas chantu sava mara kama Howlin sawe lama rinpoche, dagi chewara pende tenshola. Kadrin chenpo gone jesonte, kuson tuje ngadrop saldu sol.
So today is about the context of the teachings we'll have over the next 7 sessions. It's enormous. The context is enormous because we're looking at the Vajrayana thinking in the whole world of Buddhism. And the Vajrayana thinking is kind of the best of the best. It's the end product. And I remember the first Kalu Rinpoche, such a wonderful teacher. And he was talking about a Tibetan teacup. Now, they're not quite like a British teacup. They have 3 parts. You have a metal base, which has a hollow in the center. Then the cup itself can be made of various things. Let's take a really posh cup. That will be made of jade. And it's cylindrical and quite pointed at the bottom. So it needs the saucer to stand upright. If you just put it on a flat surface, there's every chance you'll knock it over. But it kind of slots into the saucer. So the cup needs the saucer. And then, of course, there's the tea, without which, why do you need a cup in the first place? So he was using that as an example. He said the basis, the saucer, are the basic teachings of the Buddha. They must be there. That's what it's all about. How to go beyond birth and death, being reborn again and again. And what is death? What is life? Is there something beyond it that is worthwhile and better? Very different. And so the basic teachings on the Four Truths. What is this suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death? Birth and death. Aging and sickness in between while you're alive. What is it? What causes it? Karma. The klesha. Keep that word in mind. The klesha, the mind poisons. What's liberation? Is there liberation? And then what causes it? The Four Truths. That's the basic. All the rest is because of that. Whether we use bodhisattva journey, whether we use Vajrayana technique and visualizations and puffing and panting and yogic exercise, it's all about going beyond suffering. It's not a different story. The basis must be there. That's the firm basis. But then in that, some of us have the good fortune to be ready to practice the bodhisattva way. Not everyone is. So Buddha didn't teach it to everybody. It needs courage. It needs a strong heart. You need past karma that will help you on your way and an ability to be fearless and so on. So not everyone's suited for it, but for those who are, then it is wonderful teachings that open up the loving heart and teach us not to close all the doors on existence and run away, but how to remain in the world but no longer be of the world, to be pure within what is impure and not be tainted by it anymore. So that's like the teacup. It's very precious. It's like a jade teacup. Everything it's made of is so valuable, precious, beautiful. But then, once you've got the teacup and the tea, what are you waiting for? Bloop, 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 bloop. Especially if you've been in some of the Eastern countries, when they're pouring your green tea, some of them, they do it, they lift the pot to such a height and fill up your cup with tea. It's a nice experience. They're very gifted. So once we have the basic Dharma and we have the bodhisattva mind, what is the nectar that goes in it? And who are these wonderful people who are so skilled at bloop, 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 pouring into you this nectar? This is Vajrayana, when through good fortune, our openness, propensity, good heart, meets with a teacher who embodies what it's all about, and we can connect. And then because of that connection, the real essence, the distilled essence, like a beautifully made cup of tea, pours into the cup. So the context is the Vajrayana understanding of what we are, and that's the topic of today's teaching. Now, first let's come to the title of this series. It's From Poison to Nectar. Poison to nectar. Poison is a strong word, and I'd like you to just dwell with it for a moment. Poison. Think of somebody poisoned. Either poisoned by wicked humans or poisoned because they ate the wrong thing. In some versions of why the Buddha died, it's because of mushrooms that were not the sort of mushrooms you should really eat. And it said somebody made him a mushroom dish. Us translators have problems with it because the very, very oldest texts use a Sanskrit word which could either be translated as pig or mushroom. It's a bit like the Italian, porcini mushrooms. Porcini means pig, same time. So whether he died from eating pig or whether he died from eating mushrooms, you've got the vegetarian version and the non-vegetarian version of how he got ill, and that put an end to his life. It was his time to go. So poison, some tiny quantity of something gets into you, and then it's only maybe a few milliliters, but your whole constitution is affected by it. Maybe the rest of your life is affected by it. We won't go there, but thinking just now about the sort of poison that can get into our body, various ways. Very controversial. You can't even say the words on internet. So anyway, poison. Just think what we mean by the word poison. A little bit of something poisons all the rest. Ruins or degrades all the rest. So what Buddha tells us is about our mind, its beautiful potential, our Buddha nature, but at the same time, what poisons our mind and how we carry those poisons. And the problem is we are so used to them that we don't even see them as poisons anymore for what they are. For what they are. As you wake up, you become quieter and more lucid. How the people around us are poisoning themselves all the time, unnecessarily. It's horrible. I'm talking about the mind, the mind poisons, how they're getting upset, how they're getting angry, how they're so miserable because they've not got what they want, or whatever it is. Pride puffs people up, makes them monsters, and so on. But we are so used to it, become normal. It's like, take Delhi, for example. My first visit to Delhi was in 1970. India was a very poor country. Good side of that was they didn't have many vehicles. So Delhi had clear air. The air in Delhi these days, all the time, but worse sometimes of the year, is so polluted. People's throats, all of them, affected all the time. Used to it. It's the norm. The Beijing is very similar to a lot of the year. People get used to it. And in human history, there are situations, vivid ones, where what is absolutely horrible becomes a norm. And it's a wonderful thing that the human spirit can adapt to it. I mean, that's a blessing in a way. But then once we're used to it, sometimes you can't see beyond it. I don't have TV. If I see TV, like when I was traveling, you go through airports and you see a screen, you see a TV or wherever it is. It's mad. If you've not seen it, it's like the way people are, the way news presenters, a man and a woman, dress themselves up and present something. It's absolutely crazy. People are used to it. They expect something like that. The way the adverts coming and loud and the volume's up and buy this and baked beans. And then all of a sudden you're back to a documentary where somebody's overdoing it. Here, and then that. And if you go there. But this is normal. This is normal. It's like Keanu Reeves and he's quiet. Why are you quiet? Why are you loud? Anyway, the point is the mind poisons really are poisonous. They corrupt, they hurt, they cause damage to us who carry them, and they cause us to cause damage to other people. They needn't be there in the first place. They are there through the power of tremendous habit, lifetimes of habit, this lifetime of habit. So the Buddha, in his amazing kindness, gives us the means to first recognize the poisons. We need to realize how corrupt and poisonous samsara is in ourselves. First, we need to recognize it. And then once we see what's going on, how to deal with it, how to reduce it, how to reduce our damage to other people so that we are not a walking weapon. So that we become truly a friend for the world, a friend for everyone. So the Buddha, in his great kindness, gives us this. Now, I'm just thinking we're starting today. I'm already well into it. I should really connect it with the last course, like a TV presenter that I just put down, how you have to have the lead from one topic to another one. So we finished the elements. Why is this course about elements and the Buddha families? But I want to follow on what I just said. First of all, the Buddha in his kindness gives us the means to recognize and to eliminate what is poisonous in our being. And there's an analogy if we come back to these three levels, like in the teacup, the saucer, the cup, the actual tea, the nectar. The saucer, the basic teachings of the Buddha, it says relate to the mind poisons like a poisonous bush. So you imagine a poisonous bush. Maybe it's got poisonous thorns, nasty ones. I've got some of those in my garden here. I've got cacti. They've got the tiniest little hairs almost. But once they get in, you can't get them out. And then you've got itches and little bumps for a couple of weeks. And some bushes have spikes and they really hurt you. And then some have berries that look like they could be tasty, but that they'll kill you if you eat them, nightshades and so on. So in the basic teachings of the Buddha, that's a poisonous bush, and you just stay well clear of it. You don't touch it, you don't have anything to do with it, you're very, very careful. So when it comes to what poisons us, 5 main poisons: selfish desire, hostility, and then ignorance, and pride, and jealousy. Then as soon as they seem to be manifesting, or some circumstances where you could get angry, you could get lustful, you could get proud and so on, come up, you avoid. The whole basic teachings, we call them sometimes Shravaka level of teachings, are about getting away from it. What makes people proud and angry and lustful? Possessions. Okay, forget possessions. All you've got is a simple robe, enough to be decent, and no more possessions. Homeless life. And then what makes us angry and so on? Human relationships, forget those. Go into solitude. This closing the door, staying well away, is the spirit of the Shravaka teachings. so that we find peace. The peace of removal. It's called removal, isolation, being far away. Take our mind far, far away from all those things. And then the Mahayana level. Now we come back to our poisonous bush. The Mahamayana level is the alchemist, it's the doctor who knows very carefully how to pick those berries, how to snip off those thorns, and how to process them through a process so that you end up with a medicine, like foxgloves. Is it foxgloves where you get the belladonna? Is it? No, belladonna's belladonna. Foxgloves, you get the art medicine.
Digitalis.
Yes, thank you. So if you just eat foxgloves, then you'll probably die. But if you know how to extract the digitalis, you can save somebody's life. I remember my mother-in-law, she had these little pills when she was feeling wonky. When you put a pill under your tongue, you're okay. So in the Mahayana, we relate to our anger and our pride and jealousy and ignorance in a transformative way with the skilled teachings of like 7-point mind training, where we learn how to gradually transform anger into love and then pride into an understanding of sameness of everybody, and so on and so on. We have wonderful methods. And on top of that, we have the deeper method of recognizing the voidness, the dreamlike nature, the illusory nature of all those things which made us proud or angry, whatever it was. But it's a process of gradual transformation. Our historical Buddha took 3 cosmic eons to do it. Now that's pretty long. Cosmic eon is unimaginably long. And it took him 3 of them. Lovely journey. Very, very thorough. But it's to show that it's a progressive journey where bit by bit you are on a path of change. And in the end you'll become Buddha. So that's like the wise doctor dealing with the poisonous bush. You're not avoiding it. You need it. You can use it. You know how to use it. Vajrayana. Now here we have to go into mythology because I'm not quite sure this is accurate chemically. But in the mythology, the peacock can eat poisonous berries. Doesn't need to do a gradual transformation. They just make its colors even brighter. So it's immediate. It's not a gradual path. Our path depends upon right now. Not enlightenment tomorrow or next life or in 7 lifetimes or in 3 cosmic eons. Enlightenment now. That is the whole. Oh dear. Can you give me a thumbs up if it's okay? I've got a thing that says my internet connection is unstable. Is okay? Oh, good. Okay. If something goes wrong, please give me a thumbs down. Okay. As long as I can still see you. So the whole of Vajrayana, the reason we do the visualizations and all of our devotional practices, as it says in some of the texts, on this day, in this session, on this cushion, right now, I attain enlightenment. So the Vajrayana methods, the Vajrayana presentation of understanding philosophy is all about enlightenment is live in this very moment. like we see on the social media, live now. Enlightenment has been live now. It never changes. It's always been there. Always, always, always. So what we're looking at in this course is how our relative reality, whether it be the elements, whether it be the mind poisons, and so many other things that make up our relative experience, how every moment that could be a doorway to what we ultimately are: Buddha, enlightenment, goodness, purity, clarity, wisdom, kindness, all those things, peace, deep peace. So now I need to make the connection. Why is this about the elements? Well, the elements may seem to us now, and especially when we relate to them through their names, like fire and water and earth and wind, space, they may seem just something as part of many, 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 many things that are our relative experience. So the last course was to show that's not the case. And in particular, we had 2 sessions. The first session was about the Indian elements. It's the main one that's of interest to us. There we see how these 5 elements are omnipresent. Whatever it is, whatever's happening at any time, those 5 elements are always there. This is what we saw on what seems to us a material level, on a mental level, on an experiential level, in karma as it unfolds. We saw how, like when 2 people meet, they've got karma together through their work, through their emotions, whatever. And then their beings, like the earth element, the connections they make, and the flow between them, that's the water element. The energy that that situation contains is the fire element. And the way that makes a story that moves from second to second, goes through its stages, that's the wind element. And space is the constant backdrop. So with the 5 elements, we have the next point we need to come to, which is about relative experience and ultimate experience, if we use that word. Relative and ultimate. The words in Tibetan are fascinating. We translate them as relative truth, ultimate truth. And the one that's relative truth, sometimes we say conventional truth, or people got their own translations. Let's just say relative and ultimate or absolute, some people say. But the point is, in English, truth. Not absolute truth, relative lies. That would be something else. Not, the absolute is true and the rest is not true. Maybe some Buddhists think that. The truth lies, samsara. It's called the truth of what is ultimate and the truth of what is completely false. Now think about that one for a moment. The truth about what is completely false. The truth about our illusions, our projections on each other, on the world, on reality. These are Ken's projections. These are this person's projections. They are projections. They are the way we delude ourselves, but nevertheless it's the truth about them. And what is the truth about them? This person's in this world because of their karma. It makes them experience what they do in the way they do. And everyone's world is unique. That is their relative stream of consciousness. And even though it's your illusions, my illusions, it doesn't stop us from knowing the truth about it. It's very important. And a topic to take away and do a bit of homework and think about. The truth about what is absolutely false. It's easier with other people. Often people are kidding themselves. They're going through life. They've got their illusion of who I am and what I do. And sometimes we have to live with that. And sometimes we can see through it. I hope you know what I mean. Sometimes you get they say somebody's what, a big fish in a little pond, I think. So life is full of little ponds with some big fish who are big fish because they're so important. And I think the Karmapa mentioned the other day the story about the frog that lives in a well. And if it ever got to think about how big the ocean is, it would just explode. I can't remember what they used to say to me and other people, if you could see the real truth, you'd explode. I mean, you couldn't take it. You just couldn't take it. So we can be lucid about the illusions. This gets very interesting when you meditate, because as you sit, then you can be very aware of your own illusions. It doesn't mean they go away necessarily. You can see the truth of what is totally. The word means, literally in Tibetan, the word means a mask. You know, like dancers put on a mask. So a mask has to be fabricated. And sometimes beautiful mask, very beautifully made. A lot of care goes into it. And then that hides your face. I think this year they brought back the Biennale, and where people wear these masks. And anyway, Venice, that's a strange reality. Anyway, mask. But it means what is completely fake and what covers up the real thing. So we have, and this is what the Karmapa was talking about, this text of the mind-only view of what we are. Who are you? Who am I? There's the truth of what we are, ultimately, Buddha. And there's the truth of what we are, relatively, Ken Holmes, this unique creature in front of you. So much karma went into making this. It's a changing story, and it's going to become something else. So the essence of the theory is that since beginningless time, two things have been running parallel. What we really are, Buddha, and what relatively we appear to be to ourselves and to others. In every single moment of your history, and until you're Buddha, every single moment of your future, these two things will run parallel. The one, Buddha, is defined through jnana or jnana. There are various ways of pronouncing it these days in India. In the Buddha's time, we don't know. Sanskrit's a language that died and then was revived. Jnana or jnana, doesn't matter. Translated as primordial wisdom, primordial purity. So jnana is changeless. Jnana is free of suffering. Jnana, Buddha mind, is our universal identity. Your Buddha mind and my Buddha mind, same Buddha mind. Cockroach's Buddha mind and the god Brahma's Buddha mind, same Buddha mind. Shakyamuni or Maitreya's Buddha mind, my Buddha mind. There's only one Buddha mind. It always has been. It's never changed. It will never change. It's beyond time and space, which are human interpretative constructs, time and space. Beyond them is the reality. For us, from where we are on planet Earth, in a human body with a human culture of planet Earth in the 21st century, in the whole way that we see things, and we have to say from our point of view, Buddha nature is changeless and timeless. If we go deeper, we have to say it just is. It just is. But that's what humans have to say. But that's there. And there is the truth of that being there that we learn through the Buddha nature teachings. Very, very, very vital at one point in our learning journey as Buddhists to get a really good understanding of those Buddha nature teachings. And we do that mainly through Maitreya's teaching, Asanga's teaching, in the famous text. Yes. Whichever translation name you meet it under, but there are 440 something verses about how you and I, at all times, in all situations, the ultimate truth of us is Buddha. What is Buddha? It's not an Indian person sitting under a tree. It is a mind which is totally clear and which has wisdom that manifests as these 5 wisdoms we will be exploring in detail. And I must say, it's a pleasure. So often in these talks, I have to say, oh, it's such a big topic, and we're only skimming the surface, and I can only give you an overview. So for once, we can go a little bit deeper and spend one whole session with the mind poison and the other associations of one Buddha family and one enlightened wisdom. So anyway, what does Buddha mean? It's a wisdom that has no shape, no form. It's not a Buddha with a shape and so many arms or heads or anything. Beyond all of that, just wisdom, just wisdom. Perfect wisdom that manifests as far as us observers and people who benefit from that wisdom. Then for us, it manifests in these 5 ways. That's the ultimate truth of who we are. But then the relative truth of who we are describes the delusion process. And now that is not jhana wisdom, that is vijnana, which means consciousness. So in the support document, I sent you the links to a course I gave, I think 4 sessions in December 2020 about consciousness. Relatively, the truth of what we are is consciousness. That consciousness, when we look at it in detail through the 12 steps of interdependence, that consciousness, when you left your last life, you had the whole of existence where you might have gone sort of in theory, but the whole weight and power and thrust of all the lives before took this consciousness set free from its last body, took it to planet Earth, took it to your mum and dad, and there they were making love, and something drew you to them, and to live in that country, and to be in that environment, to be in this time of human history, this stream of consciousness. Very important in the 12 links of interdependence. Link 1, basic ignorance. We don't realize who we really are. Buddha, the timeless, changeless. And so ignorance pulls us into a world of creations. That's link 2. In the past lives, so many creations. We've made situations. You made it. You got involved with this, involved with him, involved with her, involved with that. Drawn in, pulled in, and then you made that a reality. Hundreds of thousands of past creations is the background. And in all of those, then many of the creations made karma that's not finished yet. And that took you into this life. And then as you grew up, that karma makes you experience this life in the way you do, which is unique. So, but nevertheless, that's truly what you are. Buddhism's not saying Ken isn't Ken, and you aren't you. It just tells us very clearly, gives us the means rather, to discover who we truly are relatively as a stream of consciousness that's deluding itself. I hope that makes sense. So then that stream of consciousness that we are, with this big history that we need to work with, and that we are going to work with in the Vajrayana way, not by running away from it, not by slow transformation, or, oh yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, I know I'm angry. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'll get there in the end. Not that way, and which is a good way. But we're working on it in the Vajrayana way of cutting through, so that the relative power, the truth of what we are relatively, the whole power of this stream of consciousness, which normally would make us a relative person in a relative world, acting, amongst other things, under the power of the 5 mind poisons. When the 5 mind poisons come up and we recognize them, then in the instant they come up, if our Vajrayana method is well practiced, well honed, well applied, then we break through them in the instant. And each moment of mind poison can be like a doorway. I've got a funny image of I saw yesterday an image of a house made from totally recycled materials. So all the walls were made of doors. And there were red doors, green doors, doors that had been got from dumps all over the place. And the walls were made of doors. So I'm thinking of a room where you've got, because we're going to be doing the directions and so on, you've got a blue door that way and a golden door that way and a red door behind you and a green door that way. And while you're in the room and your awareness is confined to the room, that's a red door. It's got all the power of red. And that's a golden door and so on. But all of them, if you go over and open it, then there's space. The same space, whether it's a red door or a green door, space. When we get angry, when we get proud, when we get jealous, when we find ourselves dull and stupid, or we realize we're getting things wrong, ignorance, that's the hardest one. In the moment, that poison and confusion and limitation of the mind can be blown apart. I excuse my personal stories, it's just they pop up and I share them. I once needed a bit of money. Working at Samuelin, we were never paid. So from time to time, there was a need to work. And I got a job interpreting for a conference, Explosives for Peaceful Uses. Interesting place for a Buddhist to go. So one of them was for aeroplanes. Now, I don't know if that got applied to all aeroplanes, but certainly passenger planes. It just looks like a fuselage when you're inside, but there are thin strips of explosive that if the pilot activates it, it blows an instant door in the fuselage so you can get out. So I have no idea, this was a long time ago, I did that conference, if it became standard or if they realized it wasn't a good idea. But anyway, the image is, you've just got, you're in an aeroplane, it's a very confined space, and you can go, poof, and there's a doorway out. You can escape. We don't have to be angry. We don't have to be proud. We don't have to be jealous. We don't have to be stupid, ignorant, sleepy. There is a way, there are ways to use, like the peacock eating the poison berries. Poison. So this is why Akon Rinpoche used to say, thoughts are the beauty of the mind. People will come to him and say, Rinpoche, I can't stop thinking. And then some of the things I think, they're not very nice. And he would help some of them who could manage it. He'd say, the thoughts are the beauty of the mind. Because any thought, any emotion, any memory, any fantasy can in the moment, using Vajrayana method, become a doorway to our absolute truth. Our relative truth can become the doorway to our absolute truth. And then when we look at transformation, purification, every moment we can be in what Taisitupa calls the center, or the absolute truth, will purify more of the poison you carry than anything else. Every moment in the Prajnaparamita teachings, there are many, many examples, mind-boggling ones. It goes through all the things most Buddhists do. It says offerings, offerings. It says, so if you made 500 meals fit for a king, and then you offered those every day for so many cosmic eons. I mean, just imagine that when we do make offerings in the temple or to a teacher, it feels nice. It's really nice. You prepare something, and then you, with humility and with gratitude, you present the offering. So it says, imagine that, for every day for hundreds, thousands of years. And that would in no way, in terms of the goodness that you create, the merit or the punya, the virtue, and then purifying power, all of that wouldn't compare with one moment spent in shunyata. Not remedial shunyata, where you're just in your thoughts telling yourself it's void, or this is void, or that's void, or you're applying the Prajnaparamita teachings. Not any sort of remedial, artificial shunyata, but the real shunyata, where you rest in Buddha mind, in your true nature, which comes to us mainly as the lineage blessing, as our Guru's blessing. It has a very, very, very special feeling. It's not conceptual and intellectual. It's not dry and cold. It is, it's called shunyata, which has compassion as its very essence. You will know the real shunyata by the endless, unlimited love you'll feel for all beings. So shunyata, Vajrayana makes this possibility in each moment to break through, split through, go through into a shunyata. And that's more precious than anything. So this is why what we'll be looking at are the various components of our relative reality. And how, in accordance with the Buddha nature teachings, how they can be windows, like I just said, opportunities towards what is ultimately true. But then these are organized. Now, in one way, they're naturally organized by the way we are. So you're in a body. This body has got a whole set of chakras and energies and all sorts of things. You got one of those, and until you die, like it or not, you're in one of those. These eyes that you have brought you everything you've ever seen. And through everything you've ever seen, how you've understood and evaluated and experienced what we call life, other beings, these ears and so on, these five senses, then in your inner body energetically. So you've got eyes at the front, you've not got eyes at the back. We've got ears at the sides, we don't have an ear in the front and an ear in the back. Our nervous system is variously distributed. Now all of that makes for a whole. And in our last session about the elements, we saw how in meditation we can harness the power of the elements by posture. How we hold the water element with the hands beneath the navel, and that brings it in, and then through holding in the back and the shoulders, we bring the earth element into harmony. So with all of them, when it's done properly and you're in the 5-point or 7-point posture, then it is like perfectly contained. Everything's in its place. All the elements are in balance with each other, not pulling you anyway. So when we are in that architecture of being within meditation, then the directions in front of us, behind us, to the right, to the left, and above us have their own natural manifestation. And once we get some mastery of the inner energy body and its various centers and so on, that we do through posture, and then we do also through visualization, meditation methods, then we'll feel this natural, how in front is not the same as the back and not the same as the left and the right. We find when our energies like increase on the right side or increase on the left side, or when our energies drop on the left side, our whole mind changes, our emotion changes, our thinking patterns change. So what we're going to find is that naturally certain mind poisons, certain elements, and many other things correspond to the in front of us, and so on. So we have the directions, and they're given the name of the points of the compass, but what you've got in your support document, and what you need to know for Vajrayana, is that what is called east is always in front of you. So you might be facing the sunset, but in Vajrayana terms, east is what's in front of you, always, always. So we'll find that in the east, when we come next Saturday, and we start looking at the nature of hostility and anger and getting upset in all of its various dimensions, we'll see that's associated with east, in front of us. It's associated with intelligence, a sharp, wintry kind of intelligence where you're no fool. You see what's going on. You see through what's going on here and there. It's kind of icy cold, but super clear like a winter's day. But that kind of analytical intelligence, which may not always be right, but it feels like that, where you feel right, can cause us to find wrong in other, because it brings fixed ideas. And we get attached to those fixed ideas. And then we're uncomfortable with, or we're in conflict with, other people's fixed ideas. And basically they're wrong and you're right. Because nobody wants to be wrong. And so we want to be right. So we see wrong in others, and that upsets us because they shouldn't be doing that, and they shouldn't be saying that, and that shouldn't be happening. And. It's a huge area of contemplation. We'll touch on it next week, but today is just to say that this particular energy, our eyes are in front. Our eyes, this such strong sense with which we witness what's going on. And we judge. Good, bad, right, wrong. You're walking along a path. You see, avoid that, go there. That's a good one, that's a bad one. So there's a sort of a logic to it. And then we find that, okay, can we break through our hostility, our fixed ideas, what upsets us about situations, other people? Can we find Buddha in that, in the moment? Yes. Then what do we find? So there we find Buddha's forbearance that understands why everybody is who they are. So many lifetimes of karma ended up with Fred being Fred and Mary being Mary and your dog being your dog with doggy mind that wants to do what dogs do, and so on and so on. We can forbear. We can take it. We realize, how could they be anything other than what they are? And this brings us to mirror-like wisdom. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Mahayana Buddhist. I'm a Bodhisattva. I'm a Vajrayana Buddhist. I got a guru, and I do all these practices. I'm doing my very, very best to change the bits of myself that I see are troublesome. How well am I doing? How many years is it taking? How much changed? And once we understand that in ourselves, who have the Dharma, who have teachings, who have a good heart and a good will, then we have forbearance for the world and other people. It doesn't mean we don't act, but the way we act is from a wisdom that really understands what's going on. It feels into the living fabric of life and what's going on, rather than our fixed projections of what it is, right and wrong, and what it ought to be. It's very realistic, it's very pragmatic. So that's a whole topic, that's next week. It's not now, it's just to give you a sample. And then we see with the elements in the east in front of us, this is connected very much with the water element. And so through that, with the color blue, which is sometimes the color of the sea and of lakes, it depends on how they're reflecting the sky. So anyway, and then we'll see this association, that association, not just a mind poison, not just an element. We see personalities. That direction in front of us we call the related to Buddha Akshobhya, who is the embodiment of forbearance. And incidentally, the present Karmapa, 17th Karmapa, has really stressed the importance of Akshobhya, Buddha, and forbearance in our age for us. And then a most amazing thing, one of Akon Rinpoche's miracles, before he left to Tibet, before he was going on his last journey and was going to be murdered, he had inscribed inside the door of the new complex of Samiling on the wall the words Akshobhya and a date, forbearance. Nobody knew why. It's only some years afterwards that on that date, the Karmapa gave in detail to some people who gathered round him the Akshobhya teachings and empowerments, and he stressed it very, very much. And we often see the Karmapa as a manifestation of Chinrezig, the Bodhisattva of compassion. But behind that, we see Buddha Akshobhya. And a few weeks ago, we had a Milarepa song that Katie sang. We made a recording, didn't do it live. And in there, Milarepa says of Mapa, you who are Akshobhya. So in the East, we have this aspect of Buddha mind which embodies forbearance and gives us this mirror-like wisdom, and who is the head of the Vajra family. So like that, in each of the directions, we will have a special power embodied in a Buddha, who is the head of what we call a Buddha family. Now, there's not some kind of condo or housing estate up in the sky where you have Buddha families. So the Lotus family live over there, and then you go down the road and turn a corner, and then you've got the Jewel family living there. It's not like that. We're talking about the deepest architecture of the mind, your inner sacred body. Your body is the home of all the Buddhas and the Dakkas and Dakinis and Bodhisattvas. So when in meditation we are calm and we can go inside and explore this inner landscape, which is infinite, then we find that these directions hold their special powers. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at, as I just said, personalities, but this shouldn't be something that enhances our ego, so that you can go around and you say, well, I'm basically Ratna family, really, I suppose, and I've got these characteristics, and then just look at me in the mirror. Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm rather big, but then that's because I'm very generous by nature, and so on and so on. And we don't want it to become, it's like astrology. You can say, oh, you're a typical Taurus, or you're a typical Gemini, and this kind of thing. We're Buddhists. This is about going beyond persona and all the trouble it causes. So although there's a lot of truth in this directions and the persona traits that they embody, we are exploring them primarily to find them within ourselves and to liberate them within ourselves. So please don't set yourself up after this course as a Buddha family consultant, and then for £75 you can come to me and I'll tell you which Buddha family you belong to, and I'll give you a little picture of a Buddha to go away and practice. It's not about that. It's not about that. Last week, I explained to one person who was curious about last week's talk about the system of the Chinese elements. Now, somewhere in the middle of the talk, I wasn't feeling comfortable. It wasn't as fluid as some of my talks are. And it's because I realized, if I carry on like this, with the 5 elements in Chinese medicine and the organs they correspond to, and then the elements, this makes too much fire and heat in the body, or this makes too much water element, this makes things go down, go up. I'm going to spend the rest of this talk talking about something I don't know that well, which is the Chinese 5 elements in Chinese medicine, to people who, if they're really interested, can go and get real experts. You can go online, you can watch YouTubes, you can buy books. If you really want to discover the relative truth aspect of the elements, you can do that. And also, in Tibet, they basically did not apply Chinese philosophy. They took the 5 elements, because they're pretty neat and they're pretty handy, but they took them out of their context, which is the whole yin-yang Taoist mentality, and saw the truth of how the 5 elements in the Chinese system show us cycles, the dynamic nature through time, how things come into being and exist and start to crumble and disappear. So last week I thought, no, you need to pull out and pinpoint the essential things. How useful, what are the use for us Buddhists? We're not Tibetan doctors, it's not even for Tibetan medicine, which can't say stole, but borrowed those things from Chinese medicine, without the basic background theory of yin-yang and all the rest of it, the ancient stories of the turtle and so on. Anyway, we're Buddhists. We want to overcome the delusions, egotism, selfishness. We want to just bring out beautiful compassion and humility, service to others. So then we need to see how people get involved, because this second link of the 12 links of interdependence, karmic creations, are caused through getting involved, the wood element, starting to make realities, our creations. We need to see how they are at the beginning, enthusiasm, because you wouldn't be making something if you didn't want it. But then how inevitably things change, the realities you've got into, you've created, how they start to fall apart, how they come to an end, and so on. So we saw the dynamic elements to help us understand what renunciation means. Pulling the plug, realizing when something inside us is really all wanting to, what can we say? Let's put it crudely, waste our precious time. I suppose it's true, I can't say I know the expression, but in my early days of learning Tibetan, he said, well, in English, a friend of mine's Tibetan, he said, well, you say, what are you doing today? He said, in Tibet, we say, how are you wasting your time today? Something like that. What you wasting your time on today? What you got involved with? What's the latest? Anyway, it's a bit cruel to put it like that. Many things we need to do, many things are nice to do. I mean, We need to be not too serious. We need to look after our spirit. We can't help others to be kind and joyous if we're not kind and joyous. But nevertheless, in the long term, we need to be super careful with the realities that we get ourselves into. They become bigger than you expected. And I thought that was the point I needed to make last week. I was also very aware of my ignorance, and I don't like to teach what I don't feel I've got a very good grip on. I leave that to other people who are more expert. So anyway, I think that's the main context for today. I gave you a support document, and in there it starts with a quote and a development of the quote from Gampopa about how we are the 5 elements plus consciousness. So next week I need to show at the beginning briefly how in fact all of the elements are contained within consciousness. I've spoken already today about the stream of consciousness, but because I gave you that quote and because it's important, I need to unpack that next time. But just now we'll finish for today, and anything that was good and useful in this sort of overview before we go into the details, let's dedicate to all our fellow beings and wish them well and to be safe and to be healthy and to have friends, to have respect, to be making good karma, helping each other. Sonam diye tamche zikbani, tobne nye pedranam pomchene, je gana chipalap, trukpayi, sipe tsole drowa drowarisho. Janchob semcho rinpoche, maje panam je jochi, jepan nyampa me padam, kong me, kong do, dalwarisho. So thank you all very